Welcome to the Clean Library Podcast, where content meets conscience. We believe there are millions of you readers out there desperately searching for a better way to find clean content. Each episode, we will introduce you to a new author of clean books, giving you, your family, and your friends clean options.
Hello, my name is Marcus Williams. Welcome to the Clean Library Podcast. Today we have special guest author LLStandage, or Amy to her friends. Amy has been making up stories her entire life. In high school, she decided she wanted to be an author and began writing the most cringe-worthy epic fantasies, which sadly will never see the light of day. When she isn't writing, she enjoys laughing with her husband, playing Zelda with her kids, drinking herbal tea or Diet Coke, getting pedicures, traveling, and eating food. She loves chocolate and geeks out over anything having to do with England. She lives with her family in the very sunny, cactus-infested fire hazard known as Arizona. Welcome, Amy. Thanks for being on the show.
It's good to be here, Marcus.
Awesome. So we're going to go over your two truths and a lie first. And because Brock is unable to be with us today, this is my opportunity to catch up. Because I'll introduce you to Steve. He is our scorekeeper for True Truths and a Lie, and Brock is significantly ahead of me. So this is perfect. I can't fall behind today, but I can creep up on him. So we'll see what happens. Okay. So number one is I am the Scorpion Slayer in capital letters. Mm-hmm. Number two, I was born in a lazy boy chair. And number three, I've been bungee jumping in Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. So we'll see at the end of our conversation if I'm able to guess which one is the lie.
Okay.
All right. So I'm looking at your bio, and you love chocolate and you love England. So are you a Cadbury chocolate snob like I am?
I'm not as picky as most when it comes to chocolate, but I will say Cadbury has to be one of my favorites.
And it's different. If you buy it there versus buying it here, it's much better there. It's different. I was there. My son actually lives in England with his wife, and I was there last year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they live near the Cotswolds, which
you're kidding. Yeah. I'm burning with envy right now.
Her family's from there, so that was part of the deal. When we got married, you got to bring my daughter home to England. So
I wouldn't complain if it were me.
Yeah, he loves it. But I essentially I brought a bunch of stuff to them that they can't get there. And then I filled up all that empty space with Cadbury coming back.
That's a good plan.
I got stopped in security at the airport because they wanted to know what all this hot chocolate powder chocolate parts and stuff was.
It's contraband, man.
It's just chocolate. It's just chocolate. It's better than anything we can get in the States. So.
Oh yes, I have to agree with that.
Well, so a lot of the people we talked to, they kind of decided to become an author later in life, or a story came to them, so they started writing and kind of fell into it. But it sounds like this is what you've always wanted to do.
Yeah, honestly, like it says in my bio, I have been making up stories my entire life. I've always had that creativity in me. And then in high school, I wanted to be a screenwriter because I love movies. And my English teacher said, well, I know a screenwriter. I actually got to interview him. He's not a super famous one, but really nice guy. And he told me, well, once you sell your script to a production company or whoever in Hollywood, they can change it however they want. And I thought, I don't know if I like that. And especially this being the Clean Library podcast, you can imagine there are things that I purposely leave out of my stories to allow a wider audience to enjoy them. So I thought maybe instead of being a screenwriter, I'll be an author instead and write the book. And then if they decide to make a movie out of it, we can cross that bridge. I had high hopes.
Put in your contract that that you get final say. Yeah.
There will be no rated R ratings. And, that's I said, that's quite the pipe dream, but it's still out there.
Sure, it's a great dream. And it's interesting because there are like a lot of adaptations from books,
Mhm.
whether TV or movie, where they have added things
Mhm.
to make it a higher rating for whatever reason, decided that the audience that
Mhm.
loved the book wanted more. Like they're trying to
Mhm.
change the audience. I've never understood that. Like if that book's popular enough that you want to make a movie, then that means that
Mhm.
core audience wants it that way.
Right. It is a little mind-boggling, but I am not a Hollywood producer, and I'm not the decision maker on that front. So, hopefully we can get some more quality entertainment in the future that all audiences can enjoy. But for now, we'll just have to write the books.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can't find it out there, you've got to create it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh, I'm the type of person who, whenever a new movie comes out, I have to read the book first before I
Mhm.
go to the movie. And I think it's partially because the book's always better. And so I don't want to not like the movie and dissuade me from reading the book. But
Yeah.
um, there was a very famous, I won't name it, but a very famous Broadway play musical
Mhm.
um, that I found out there was a book for, and I hadn't seen the show yet. I'd listened to the music, loved it, and I read the book, and I was shocked because they did the exact same thing. They added a
Mhm.
sex scene on stage, which is
Oh
always
dear.
awkward on
Mhm.
stage, and it wasn't in the book.
Hmm.
There was just kissing in the book, and like, you added one of the hardest scenes to act and to direct live on stage for
Right.
no reason other than you just I don't know.
You
I
just
don't know what
wanted
the
to.
reason is.
Hmm.
Right.
Well, that's frustrating.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you started out with cringeworthy epic fantasy,
Oh,
which
yes.
I think we all
And
do.
when I go back and read them now, I think, "Oh, sweet baby Amy, you had so much to learn." And it's okay. Everybody has to start somewhere,
Yeah,
and whatever your skill level, if you have a story within you, get it down,
yeah. You're never gonna get better if you don't start
right?
somewhere.
Mhm.
So have you stuck with fantasy? Is that your
Yes, I
main genre?
have. I don't do epic fantasy anymore. Now I focus mainly on urban fantasy because I
Okay.
love the stories like Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, the things where they exist in our day and age in the story, but they're hidden. So it almost makes the story come alive a little bit more because you think, oh, this could actually happen in somewhere in our imagination, of course. But
Right.
that thought always appeals to me, just that we can relate it to our own world and see it in our own world. And there's lots of stories and things like that are
Yeah.
lots of fun and popular these days.
Oh, and there's something about that feeling of there could be magic around you. Like
Right.
there's more to life, there's more to the world
Mhm.
around you that could be out there, and I don't know. I think that hits the imagination in a way that an epic fantasy that is based on something that's you everybody knows it's completely made
Mhm.
up
Mhm.
can't hit. Like
Right.
it hits a note that the epic can't hit.
Right.
Um,
And it's different for every person. It's everyone has
sure.
their preference. And of course there's that beautiful escapism that you get from fantasy. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy it a lot. And Lord of the Rings is just one of my obsessions. I love it.
Yeah.
But for as an author, I like to focus on the things that could happen in our day and age, just to, like you said, expand the imagination and what is really possible. And yeah.
There was I'm trying to remember the name of the author. I think Ruth Chu. She
Hmm.
did children's books. Does that ring a bell?
I'm not familiar, but
So
continue.
she they're hard to find now, and I read them as a kid, and I think she was really good at that and kind of sparked my imagination a lot.
Hmm.
Like it would be like the Loch Ness monster in the lake at Central Park. It's like there's
Hmm.
this, and only these kids could see and interact while everyone else around them couldn't see what was happening. It was that
Right.
same kind of
Oh, that's so
mad
fun.
magic imagination,
Hmm. Like
and
Magic Treehouse.
yeah, and
Hmm.
that I think that sparks outside of reading, outside of books, that sparks imaginative play, imaginative
Hmm.
just just
Thinking
really gets
outside
the
the
creative
box.
juices.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
which
It's fun.
helps in every aspect
Hmm.
of your life, your children, your education, whatever. So
Exactly.
how how do you then get your ideas? What is your process?
Oh, that's a good question. It usually starts with a what if question,
Okay,
as I believe many authors have what if, and so on. I have a series out right now that is about mermaids
okay.
and what if mermaids were real. And really,
Wait, they aren't?
are they? The story or the question that came to my mind was, what if a mermaid had been seen washed up on the shores of La Jolla, California? What would ensue from that occurrence? And that's
Hmm.
where the story kind of spirals from there. And then I got to come up with a character and a conflict and um, all the things that go along with that. But that's and essentially where it starts is a what if question.
Yeah, that's interesting. And do you find that when you have that question, that then the other parts start falling into place? Or I
If
guess
it were that
I
easy.
yeah, are you a pantser? Are you some, or do you
Oh gosh, yeah.
plot out and plan?
You know, that I've always considered myself a plotter. I love to
Hmm.
have everything outlined, but in recent years, I've had the hardest time sitting down to plot. I get impatient. I want to just start drafting. So
Hmm.
I've decided to kind of be a mixture of both, what they call planter.
Okay.
I don't stick to a certain outline because I will discovery write as I go. However, I do have to have some ideas set in place. Who my bad guy is, what their motivation is, who my good guy is, and what, and so on. And
Yeah.
side characters, locations, things like that. It can bog down the process a little bit because you get into those rabbit holes of research, and it's so fun to find out where could my book take place. So it takes a lot of self-discipline to really buckle down and get the storyline going. But I consider myself a little bit of
A little
both
bit of
plotter
both.
and pantser.
Yeah. The so one thing I like to ask, just because it interests me in comparison to the way I write, is when you start developing your characters and that story starts coming together, do your characters dictate what happens next?
Yes. As odd as that sounds, because and for some, I don't know if it's this way with every author, but I actually have another story that's kind of on my back burner right now,
Hmm.
where my main character is at a boarding school and she has one character that she's developing feelings for and another character who has feelings for her. And she doesn't care for this other individual at all. She hates him. But in the story, he started getting an arc. He started changing. Somehow I'm thinking, wait, you're not supposed to change, sir. You're supposed to be a flat character that just is kind of a jerk the whole story. But he started to change. And I thought, okay, wait a second. But no, it happens. And it's the oddest thing that people we create take on a life of their own.
Yeah, and it's so hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced. That's why I like to ask, because I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm not so weird.
No, you're not. If you are, we all are.
Like, I've had characters who've told me, "Okay, it's time for me to die," and
Uh-huh.
no, no, no,
You can't die.
It-
I love you.
and you can't, it's like you can't not do what they say.
Hmm. Oh, and it's
It's
heart wrenching. Is it the weirdest thing to kill off a character that you love and you could keep them alive? You're the author. And yet,
right.
no, the story requires it. And the
Yeah,
character and the other characters require it too. It's crazy how these things happen.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of, I guess, fantasy, I have a series that, I mean, it has some light fantasy in it, but
Hmm.
book 4, suddenly a dragon appeared, and there was
Awesome.
like no plans for dragons. I never, I'm not super into dragons. There was no plan for dragons, and suddenly this dragon appeared and was the crux of that story. I'm like, where did you come from? Who are you? But that was it.
It's,
And
yeah, it's beautiful. I love the creative process. It really is a beautiful thing.
and for how time consuming, frustrating, a
Hmm.
slog it is to write, like those moments, I
Hmm.
think make it worth it.
Oh, absolutely. When you see that creation occur and that magic happen and the characters that do take on a life of their own, it's incredible. It really is.
Yeah. Or when you have a reader come to you and say, "Why did you kill off that character?" I didn't
Oh,
have a
yeah,
choice.
I had to. I'm sorry.
So with your books, how did the process work for you in the decision to keep them clean, and what does that mean for you?
To me, it appeals to a wider audience. It's a chance for a 9-year-old girl, my friend's daughter, to read my series as well as an adult. And I want my children to be able to read my books without me feeling like, oh, you're that you no, you can't. That's a little too mature for you.
Hmm.
And it really is kind of a touchy subject because everybody has a different opinion on what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. But for me, I prefer to keep language to a minimum, sexual situations either to be non existent or perhaps behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And because, especially with those situations, that part of life to me is a very sacred thing. I know that's kind of an odd word for it, but
Yeah.
it is not something that I feel should be laid out on the page. And that's my personal opinion. And I
Sure.
want my kids to understand certain things about it as well. And that's why I leave it out or treat it very carefully and lightly. And yeah, I just want something that everyone can read and not have to worry about, oh, is this okay for my child and or my grandma? you know.
Right. That's always the comparison, your kid
Grandma,
and your grandma.
right? Yes, I feel it appeals to a wider audience. There are individuals who enjoy certain spice levels in their book, and that is completely their business, and
Sure.
it's fine. It won't be in my book, and maybe my book is not for them. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
it really is a very subjective business.
Yeah, and I think especially in when talking about romantic scenes or sex scenes,
Hmm.
you, with the word clean, you don't want to
Right.
make it sound like, well, it's dirty, so I can't put it in.
Yeah.
But I really like the way you described it. That it's not a matter of clean or dirty; it's a matter of your word sacred. Word
Right.
doesn't belong here, and
Hmm.
and
Or
like
but it belongs behind closed doors. You know.
right, yeah, like in my series, book 1, the couple gets married, and then by book 3, she's having a baby. Like, we all know how that happens, but
Exactly.
we don't need to
You don't have
describe
to
it or
elaborate.
explore it. Right.
Right.
You know, that's yeah,
And then
exactly.
and it's a beautiful thing for, to fall in love and to create a family. It really is. But do we have to have it spelled out on the page?
Right.
There's certain things that are there to influence the reader, I guess, or to create feelings within the reader. And that is one that I prefer not to create within the reader.
Yeah. And
Leave it up to
like
the
you said,
imagination.
there's there's a lot of debate on what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, at what age
Hmm.
you should talk, and all that stuff.
Yes,
But if you if it's not there, then you don't even have to have that debate because you don't have to worry
exactly.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you can't argue that it not being there is inappropriate for certain ages, because,
Right.
you know,
It's
so
just that's just purely down to personal preference, really.
right. And like we always say, and we've said it before and we'll say it again, it's a choice. And
Mm-hmm.
which one you choose and at what time, and maybe today you choose a clean book and tomorrow you
Mm-hmm.
don't. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine. The fact that you have those choices because they're both available is what's important.
That's the beautiful thing. I love that.
So how do you, in your own reading and maybe with your kids, how do you figure out new books? How do you figure out whether they're clean or not, or appropriate or not, or whether you're going to read or let your kids read? Like, what
Um,
resources do you use?
right. Well, for my kids, they're still middle grade, so it's a lot easier because
Yeah.
middle grade tends to stay on that cleaner side. If there ever comes a day when it's not, I think we need to reevaluate the world's values. But for myself, when I'm looking for a new read, I will either ask the author directly. Sometimes I come across them on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the social media platforms, and I just say, "What's the spice level?" It's super easy, non-judgmental question. You just want to know, and they will say 0, or they'll let me know what's in it, and so that's
Mm-hmm.
one way. And I encourage readers to do that. I, as an author, love it when readers contact me. There may be some authors that are much more prolific and don't have the time to respond to every reader, but what can it hurt?
Sure.
Contact the author if you're unsure. And some of the other methods of finding out, there's Common Sense Media that will sometimes spell out what content is in a book. Goodreads is also a very good resource for readers. You can look at reviews that other readers have posted, and they will often give trigger warnings or ratings for a book as far as content versus whether or not they enjoyed the story. You get both. But I
Yeah.
really appreciate reviewers that do that, because then I can go in and say, oh, this book really isn't for me. Or, oh, this seems like this one's going to be okay. Let's give this one a try, and end up finding my next favorite read.
Yeah. I love that, contacting the author directly,
Mm-hmm.
especially small authors, indie authors, new authors.
Mm-hmm.
Getting an email from a reader, or a direct message or something, is amazing.
It
That's
is.
awesome. And there's nothing an author likes to talk about more than their own books.
Truth.
But that's a great idea, and probably something that a lot of readers out there would never think of. They would
Mm-hmm.
never,
Sure. Give it a
I don't want to
try.
waste their time. I don't want to
Yeah. Oh,
bug
no.
them or something like that.
What's the
Not
worst that could
true at all.
happen? They don't answer.
Yeah,
Then
they
you
just
try
don't
and find
respond.
another avenue to figure out what content is in their book.
Yeah. The the unfortunate thing, I mean, it's great that those resources out there. The unfortunate thing is how much work you have to do
Mm-hmm.
just to make the decision whether or not you want to try a book that you don't even know if you're going to like yet.
Right.
That's
It is
tough.
unfortunate. And sometimes I wish that we could have some kind of book rating system like we have with movies, but because it's a visual medium versus a written medium, again, there's that debate on, okay, what makes it rated PG-13, for example? What makes it rated R? What makes it PG? So it's a little easier because of the visual medium, because they can spell out certain things. But with reading, it's like, oh, is it as quote unquote bad? I don't like using that word because of, I don't like using shame or dirty or anything like that to describe certain
Yeah.
content, but it's a very difficult line and way to describe. So I understand why there's no rating system, but I do wish there was something in place
Right.
that could guide parents and readers to the content that they want to avoid.
Yeah, and on top of all that, just the sheer volume of books being released would make it
Right.
very difficult to do.
Hmm.
Because there are a couple of websites out there where they do provide ratings,
Hmm.
and but they can only read so many books a month,
Hmm.
and right.
It's very true.
So yeah, I think it's problem out there that needs to get solved. We need to figure it out because the demand is there. Um, but how is the question, and who is
Hmm.
going to be willing to take it on and do that
Right.
work?
And
And
what makes them the
maybe
authority?
right,
It's
right, exactly.
really it's also subjective. Everybody can say this is a very clean story, even though their level of clean or their level of spice differs from the next person. It's a very difficult thing to spell out. So,
Right. I mean, when people, I have books that I would say, yes, totally clean,
mhm.
anybody, and then I have ones where someone asks me and I have this little twinge of, oh no, yes, I think it is, but I know some other people might not because it has a couple of what I consider lighter swear words in it.
Right.
And I don't want them to be offended. Like, what do I do?
Right.
But then I don't want to sound like I'm um, an apologist for my
Right.
own book. So yeah, it's
So
tough.
sorry, it's got some swearing, and that's a difficult thing as a writer as well, because when you are writing these characters that come from different backgrounds and different cultures and nationalities, and there are some people that that's just in their vernacular.
Hmm.
Really, to edit that out makes them feel less genuine. So it's possible, and you can, and that's your choice, and it's absolutely fine. But again, where do you draw that line? So it's very challenging as an author.
Yeah, I mean, there are words in England that they say all the time that
Oh
you could
yeah.
never say here.
And vice versa.
Right, right, and it's the same language. So
Yeah.
uh, that's it's tough, and you also don't want to sound hokey and be using, "God darn it," all the time.
You have a
But
battle hardened general saying, golly gee whiz. it's
right,
it
so
it
ha
doesn't lend to authenticity in that situation. So it's very difficult to remain authentic to the character and still leave out the things you want to leave out. It's
yeah, and
possible, just difficult.
right, and I like find sometimes instead of using dialogue, I'm describing the dialogue,
Hmm.
which in kind of breaks an unwritten rule where, dialogue is always more powerful than not, but
Hmm.
sometimes like
He swore.
I'm going to
Yeah.
describe the colorful words or
Yeah. The string of profanities that
yeah,
emerged from.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
ellipses and he said, very vehemently or something.
Exactly. Or that it gets broken off. The character, one character will interrupt another character before the other
Right.
one says the swear. There's all kinds of techniques to to leave it off
Yeah,
the page.
little creative things here and there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting because I think you're right that um, a book without the content appeals to a larger audience. But then you see this market where the books with that content, with the spicy content and the language,
Hmm.
do so well and
Hmm.
become so popular and famous. It almost seems like those two things can't work together.
Hmm.
And I don't know. Do you feel like there's a disadvantage in the marketplace for being clean?
I would have to agree. Yeah, it does make it a little bit harder to break through, but there will always be a market for clean fiction, for lack of a better word. There will
Yeah,
always be a market for spice free, and it may not be as wildfire crazy as, I don't like the word crazy either, but it may not be as wildfire popular, I should say.
yeah,
Um, but there will always be a market for it. There will always be readers.
yeah.
And yeah.
And we Brock and I, when we were choosing the name of the podcast, went through so many different
Oh,
iterations, and
yeah.
we landed on clean because of the fact that it's so loaded and so
Mhm.
hard to say without being and
Yeah.
kind of yeah. Because I think that's the discussion is I want this because I consider it clean without making a judgment on what you want.
Mhm.
Um, and I think if we find, I think it's easier for those other books to, I don't know, become more popular, find a place in the algorithms,
Mhm.
whatever. But there's a solid market under that for the
Mhm.
clean books, like you
Oh,
said, and
absolutely.
it's a matter of finding the audience and introducing them to those works, and then once you've found them, they are loyal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree. And there will always be people that maybe prefer the spice, but they know their friend that doesn't. And, oh, the word of mouth, and readers are huge gossipers, right? We love to tell each other about all the great books we're reading. It's awesome.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, like you said, there will always be this this market and this platform for people that prefer the quote unquote clean. And to be completely transparent, I don't mind describing a book as clean. I don't feel that it's causing me any shame, or I hope it doesn't cause anybody else any shame.
Yeah,
But I do know that there are readers and individuals that find that term offensive. So, um, try to say to each their own, and you are all valid. However, it's so much easier and more concise to describe a book that doesn't have swearing, super graphic violence, or the sexual situations on page as clean. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I imagine if a rating system did exist, that instead
mhm.
of saying this, like TV and movies is very geared towards age, which I think
Mhm.
is subjective. And
Right.
I kind of go like, where do you get the right to tell me what age my kids can be to
Mhm.
watch your movie? Um, I imagine more of a system where it's just descriptive.
Right.
This book has, I don't know, tier one, tier two words in it, and these are those
Right.
included. And this book has this, and then let the readers make the
Mhm.
decision on
I think that's
where
brilliant.
they want to land.
Yeah, tier 1, tier 2, and I see that described a lot in the romance genre as well. They have these uh what do you call them? Tier, for lack of a better word, but tier 1 has this type of content, tier 2 this type of content, and 3 and so on, and then anything beyond those is considered um spicy, or
Right.
whatever you want to call it, or not
Right.
considered clean.
Because, I mean, let's be honest, a PG-13 movie today is very different than one 10 years ago, and
Oh
it's going to
yeah.
be different 10 years from now. So what does that actually mean?
Right.
And sometimes, like, wait a minute, when did they allow that word in a PG-13 movie? And
Oh, I remember that switch, really. As a moviegoer, it's like, "Oh, wait, isn't this, oh, well, okay," and you can
and
still
on
enjoy
t
the movie, but
right, and now on broadcast television,
oh, yeah.
it's changed so much that it would be much easier just to know this is what this
Mhm,
program has in it. You
mhm.
make the decision whether you want to watch it or not.
Exactly.
I've started going back. It's going to take me some time to get to it because my list of things to do
Oh,
is so
yeah.
huge. But trying to go back to all the books I've released already and update the blurbs to include kind of that content description in the blurb,
Mhm.
so that they don't have to do all this research
They don't
on
have to dig for it.
Goodreads
Yeah.
and reviews and all that stuff. So that's on
Right.
my to-do list. And any the new book that's coming out here in a couple weeks, I'm building that in already. But that's, I kind of went back and said, you know what? I keep talking about this. I need to actually do it.
Right. Oh, I think that's brilliant, is adding it to the little Amazon blurb, or the, uh Barnes and Noble, or all the
Yeah.
little booksellers that you have. I think that's a great idea. Or even on your website, your social media. Yeah, let's normalize this.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you traditionally published or self-published?
I prefer the term indie published, but yes, I
Okay.
am
Yeah.
self-published. And the reason for that is because self-published makes it sound like I wrote the book, I published it, when really it was a whole team of creators that helped me and polished my book up to be the best that it can be, much like a traditional a traditionally published author would have. I hire professional editors. I hire professional graphic designers to do the cover, and so on. There's a whole team of people. So really, it's not just a self effort. It is independent because I am the business owner, but there's a whole team of people behind the project.
I love that. That's awesome. I have a shirt that says support indie authors.
I love it. I have a sticker on my Tumblr that it says that.
But I love that description. And not only because it's true, but because it's giving, it's actually acknowledging all of these other people who worked on the project. It's giving them credit for the work they did instead of claiming it all for yourself. And it is a business. Publishing your book is a business, and whether you do it under your own name or you open an LLC to do it under, it's a lot of coordinating and scheduling and timing and reviewing, all the things that you do
marketing
in a business.
and you spend a lot of money too. It costs a lot of money to publish a book. And that's why it's so difficult for many people to get through that gate to traditional publishing, because the publishing company really has to protect their investments, and it costs so much money to produce a book. They want to make sure they're getting the very finest, as every author wants to put forth their very finest content. So that's why, as an independent author, we put forth that investment for the editor and the beta readers and the cover designers and whatnot, and even website designers for some people. I do have a background in graphic design from college, but I do not claim to be an expert. So it is very helpful to hire out and make sure that I really am getting the very best that I can, and that my readers are getting the very best that they can.
And there are so many indie published books out there that are so good.
Right.
That you're not going to see on the front table at Barnes and Noble because the big publishers paying for that spot but it's ever since I started writing, I've started searching out indie authors to read their books. And there's so many good stories out there that it really, if you're an avid reader, you're doing a disservice to yourself by only reading the books put out by the big publishers. Like, sure, those are great too, but there are so many other good books out there.
True.
Give a new author a chance. Read a book. Read the first couple chapters for them. You may be surprised.
And there's always a way. I actually just saw a reel about this on Instagram. If you have a hard time affording books, there are so many more avenues that you can take. First of all, your local library. You can request books at your local library. And you can do ebooks and audiobooks that way. It's fantastic. You can do ebooks, which generally are cheaper than ink and paper. I like having books on my shelf. They look pretty. I call them my audiobook trophies because I love the audiobook. So I buy the book. And then you can even ask to be an ARC reader. I don't know if this has ever come up on your podcast, but if a reader is strapped for cash and they love to read and they love an author or want to give a new author a chance, they can offer to be an ARC reader. And then they can just shout their praises to the heavens and tell all their friends about it, because there's nothing more valuable than a reader who loves your story and will share it. So it's a way to get a free book. Yeah.
That's a great way to do it and what takes 5-10 minutes to write a review as a thank you for the free copy of the book. And I love the library one because I've done that as well. And a lot of people don't know that they can request books from the library, and as long as if you can find the book on Amazon and pull the little number from there, the ISBN number, you can request it. I did that for my own books in my local library.
I haven't done that yet. Oh, can you believe it? I should do that for sure.
And it's cool when you walk in the library and you see
Mhm.
your own book is checked out.
Oh, how
That's a
fun.
that's a cool feeling.
And leaving
But
reviews. Oh, leave reviews. It is
yeah,
lifeblood. It is amazing. And I'm not saying leave only reviews if you enjoyed the book. Leave
right.
honest reviews, because even a bad review, as heartbreaking as it can be for the author, I won't lie, it legitimizes the book, because then it doesn't look like the author just had all of their friends read and review it. It is
Yeah.
an actual story that actual people are enjoying and giving their honest opinion. So
And
leave an honest review.
no matter how famous the author, there should be people out there that don't like their book.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there should be negative reviews.
They're even hit books that everybody seems to adore has 1-star reviews where I did not finish, or yeah,
Right.
it's that I've let that kind of roll off my back whenever I get a bad review nowadays. It's like, okay, you know what? It's okay. This legitimizes my book, and now I can do better. So,
Yeah. And it may be something that you learn from and adjust in the future, or it may just be that
mhm.
they just didn't care for your style or story, and that's
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
And I think that the one note is the worst thing you can do is just leave stars and not explain it. Like leaving just a 2-star and not saying
Mhm.
why doesn't help anybody.
It really, yeah, it is a little frustrating when someone leaves a 1 or 2 or any kind of star and doesn't explain why.
Yeah.
I will admit that that is a little frustrating. However, I won't fault anybody who does, because they still left me a review or they left
Yeah.
a rating. So
Still did
if
something,
you can, please leave a review. It's super helpful.
even if it's just a couple sentences, just
Right.
very short. Tell me at least why story wasn't for me. I didn't,
Mhm.
whatever it
Hated
is.
the main character, whatever it
Right.
is. Yeah.
Right.
We really would love to know
Yeah,
why you
exactly.
didn't like us. It's not us. It's not personal. We we just go sit in a corner and cry, and then get back up and go back at
Right. I mean,
it.
I got a review, actually 2 that said the same thing. They were confused by this. It was kind of I thought I was being clever, and it was this little clue
Oh,
that I left in the book, and they didn't get the clue. And
hmm,
so now I have to go back at it and look at it. Well, maybe I'm not as clever as I think, and it wasn't actually a good clue, or maybe they just didn't get it.
oh,
Like, it
darn
wasn't
it!
me, or just, what was
Right,
it? But that I'm never going to know that that clue didn't work for some people if no one tells me.
right, exactly. And as many people that we have, alpha readers, beta readers, editors, all these people that have eyes on our book, there's always going to be a group of people who maybe don't quite jive with it, don't quite get, like you said, the hints or the clues or the storyline. So, yeah, let your voice be heard. Let your opinion be heard. It's very valuable and valid.
Yeah,
So don't be
absolutely.
shy.
So, do you have something that you're working on now, and when will it come out?
I do have a couple things I'm working on. As far as release dates go, I don't have that yet.
Okay.
Um, I am working on. I think it's really funny that you said you weren't super into dragons, um, but I am working on a dragon one. And that one takes place here in my home state of Arizona. My husband and I just recently moved out closer to the desert area, more,
Mhm.
I should say, the wild desert area.
Were
There's
there lots of scorpions to kill?
maybe there were, maybe there weren't. But we are right near the Superstition Mountains, and it's really a beautiful mountain range. It's just my favorite view here in the Phoenix area. And so that's kind of where it takes place, is this very mysterious and interesting mountain range. And there's dragons. So
Cool.
untitled, but that's what I'm working on now. And then I also have um, sort of a secret garden retelling,
Mhm.
and it will still be urban fantasy but have some gothic tones to it.
Cool.
I recently went to a writers conference, was it last month, and it was amazing, so fun, loved every second. And I took a class on gothic literature taught by the shout out amazing Catherine Purdy. If you haven't heard of Catherine Purdy, highly recommend her books. They're fantastic. And she also is a clean, quote unquote, author.
Yeah.
And her books are amazing. So she taught the class on Gothic literature, and it made me inspired. I thought, oh, I want to write a Gothic novel. So I'm doing one that's a little bit of secret garden-ish.
Cool.
So lots of fun.
Well, we talked to another author who uses the Superstition Mountains as his location.
I think I know who, but
Tyson Abaroa.
Yes, I do know Tyson a little bit. I know of him. Yeah, nice guy.
Yeah. And clearly I like dragons more than I thought I did. Otherwise, they wouldn't be speaking to me. So,
Oh yeah, it's all good. Yeah, that's really cool. I actually, I have Tyson's book. I haven't read it yet, but I need to, because his is more focused on the Lost Dutchman mine and the legends surrounding the Lost Dutchman mine, which is so fascinating to me. I love that story. And mine touches on that just a little bit, but takes it in a completely different direction. But I'm glad you mentioned Tyson, because he's also fantastic. So I'll recommend, I'll put another shout out for him too.
Cool. All right. Well, we are out of time, so I need to get to your Two Truths and a Lie.
Okay.
And the scorpion is the only one that I worked in there, but you taught me. Okay. So I'm going to remind everybody what they were. Number 1, I am the Scorpion Slayer. Number 2, I was born in a lazy boy chair. And number 3, I've been bungee jumping in Costa Rica. I'm going to say, I know there are lots of scorpions in Arizona. So usually there's one person in the household who's in charge of dispatching them. So I'll say, I'll go with true on that one.
Okay. Do you want me to say yes or no, or?
No, not yet. Wait till I make my final pick.
Okay.
I mean, born in lazy boy chair, that would just be a guess. Bungee jumping in Costa Rica, possibility. Who knows? Because you love traveling. So I'll go with number, I don't know. Are you the slayer, or is it your husband? I'll go with number 2. I was born in a lazy boy is the lie.
That is also true. My mother was sitting in a lazy boy chair at Graham County Hospital in Arizona when I was born. That's
so
kind
at least it was in a hospital, not in a living room. It was in
a hospital, yes. And I am the Scorpion Slayer. I have never been bungee jumping in Costa Rica. I've never even been to Costa Rica, and I will never go bungee jumping because I'm terrified of heights. Okay. So I'm sorry to say,
usually an all or nothing proposition. Either you're going to bungee jump or you will never bungee jump. Yeah, exactly.
So, we do have a lot of scorpions out here, and as we built our house, we've been here for about a year, and about a week or 2 after we moved in, we started seeing them, and they are terrifying. Not only are they poisonous and their sting really hurts, but they're just gross to look at. They're awful. So every time I had to kill one, and my husband has killed some too. So let's give him some credit as well.
All right,
he's Slayer. I say I'm Slayer A because my name is Amy, and he's Slayer B because his name starts with B. Okay. So, I don't want to say alpha and beta. Nah, none of that dynamic in our marriage. But he has killed some. But every time I kill one, I write about it because it's therapeutic.
Gotcha.
Because they terrify me. So
thus the title.
Yes, the Scorpion Slayer. Lots of fun.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, it didn't hurt me at all. I didn't fall behind. I'm just so
that's a fun game.
Yeah. Eventually, he keeps pulling ahead of me, but I'll get there.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. This has been a lot of fun. We appreciate you being on the show and talking today. But for everyone out there listening or watching, please subscribe, follow, share with your friends, whether on social media or word of mouth. It really helps out all the authors that we speak to, and we can help get the word out about new, clean authors and books to those who are looking for them. So thank you again, and we will catch you next time on the Clean Library Podcast.